My name is Juanita. I'm sitting at my new desk, looking out at the city skyline from my corner office. The sunlight filters through the glass, casting a warm glow over the room. It's hard to believe that just 6 months ago, I was on the verge of leaving this company, feeling undervalued and overlooked. Let me take you back to that fateful day. I was sitting across from my boss, Isabella, at her immaculate desk. The sky outside was a dull gray, mirroring my mood. I had spent 5 long years sacrificing weekends, missing family dinners, and putting in endless overtime. All of that hard work was condensed into a 20-page portfolio, which Isabella barely glanced at before setting it aside. "I appreciate your enthusiasm," Isabella said, adjusting her designer glasses. "But I've reviewed your application thoroughly, and while your work has been adequate, I don't believe you're qualified for senior management. Perhaps in another year or 2. The word adequate dropped between us like a stone. I wanted to scream. I had maintained the department's highest client satisfaction ratings. I had personally saved the Thompson account when everyone else had given up on it. I hadn't taken a full weekend off in 3 years. But instead, I just smiled and nodded, the practiced expression I'd perfected in the corporate world. "I understand. Thank you for the feedback. I'm glad we're on the same page," I replied calmly. Isabella was already checking her watch. "The Miller proposal needs your attention today. They've requested additional metrics before signing." As I gathered my things, Isabella was already typing an email, my career disappointment already forgotten. I walked past the corner office that should have been mine, with its window view and glass door where my name should have been. In the parking garage, I sat in my car and stared at my reflection in the rear view mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't sad or angry. She looked determined. I started the engine and made 2 decisions that would change everything. I would cancel my upcoming vacation, and I would stop writing my daily operational guides. I grew up in a large family. My parents were hard, working blue-collar workers. My father was a mechanic and my mother worked in a factory. They taught me the value of hard work and perseverance. With 3 younger siblings, I learned to solve problems quickly and efficiently. This skill transferred perfectly to my corporate life. When I joined the company 5 years ago, I inherited a mess. The previous team leader had left abruptly after a disagreement with management, taking all the procedural knowledge with them. There was no documentation, no transition notes, not even passwords to critical systems. The department was in chaos, and clients were threatening to leave. I spent 3 months reverse engineering every workflow. I stayed until midnight decoding spreadsheets and reconstructing client histories. I created detailed guides for every process, color-coded, indexed, and meticulously organized. Isabella never bothered to learn these systems. Why would she when I handled everything so smoothly? "You're a natural problem solver," she'd say during my performance reviews. But the modest raises she gave me never matched my contributions. The company had recently landed a contract with Miller Enterprises, a major client worth millions in annual revenue. I had built that relationship from scratch, staying late to accommodate their overseas time zone and learning their industry inside out. Isabella had attended only a few meetings, mostly to claim credit during quarterly executive reviews. Every morning, I arrived at 7:30 to prepare briefing notes for Isabella before her 9 o'clock management meeting. Every evening, I sent comprehensive updates on all active projects. In between, I put out fires before anyone even noticed there was a problem. But after that promotion rejection, something inside me snapped. The next morning, I arrived at exactly 9 o'clock. I drafted no briefing notes. I answered only the emails directly addressed to me and ignored the rest. When a crisis erupted with a supplier, I directed it to the appropriate department instead of solving it myself. By lunchtime, 3 people had stopped by my desk with confused expressions. "Juanita, did you see the thread about the Thompson scheduling conflict?" asked Mark from accounts. "Yes," I replied, continuing to type. He waited for more, shifting awkwardly when nothing came. "So, can you fix it like you usually do?" I looked up from my screen. "That's actually under procurement scope." I forwarded it to Lisa. His eyebrows rose slightly. "But you always handle these things." I've been advised to focus more on my assigned responsibilities, I said with a small smile. I'm trying to demonstrate that I understand my proper place in the organization. By 5 p.m., I packed up my belongings and left. No extra hours, no taking work home. On my drive, I canceled the cabin reservation for my upcoming vacation, the first real break I'd planned in 3 years. Instead, I would watch the system collapse. That evening, my phone buzzed with work notifications. I silenced it and spent time with my daughter, Sophia. We baked chocolate chip cookies, something I hadn't done in months. As we laughed over misshapen cookie dough, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. Sophia, why are you home early? Sophia asked, licking batter from a spoon. I paused, trying to figure out how to explain corporate politics to an 11-year-old. I decided my time was valuable, honey, and I wanted to spend more of it with you. She beamed. Can we do this tomorrow too? Absolutely, I promised, ignoring the phone vibrating insistently on the counter. The next morning, cracks were showing at work. The Miller client had requested urgent changes to their implementation plan, changes only I understood how to make. Isabella attempted to lead the response team, but quickly became overwhelmed without my usual detailed briefings. Where are the process notes for the Miller customizations? She demanded, appearing at my desk at 10:30. They're in a shared drive, I replied pleasantly. Under client implementations. I mentioned it in last month's department meeting. There are hundreds of files there. Which one specifically? I pulled up the folder on my screen. The master document is called Miller Enterprise Integration, Complete Process Documentation. It's organized by module with tab sections. Isabella stared at the 200-page document with barely concealed horror. Can you just handle this directly? The client is waiting. I'd be happy to, I replied. But I have the quarterly compliance review this afternoon. I can get to Miller first thing tomorrow morning. Her face tightened. This can't wait until tomorrow. I understand. Would you like me to reschedule the compliance review? It's due to the regulators by the end of the day. She left without answering, her heels clicking aggressively down the hallway. That evening, I turned off all work notifications and took Sophia to the park. My personal phone remained silent beside me on the bench as I watched her on the swings, her laughter carrying across the playground. For the first time in years, I was fully present in my personal life. When we returned home, I checked my work phone once. There were 79 missed calls from various work numbers. Voicemails ranged from confused to desperate to furious. The Miller team was threatening to pull their contract. 3 systems had developed unexpected issues, all documented in my guides, which nobody had bothered to read. The quarterly compliance report due to regulators was still incomplete. I set the phone down and slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I arrived at precisely 9 o'clock again. The office atmosphere had transformed overnight. Harried colleagues rushed between meeting rooms. Isabella was visible through her office glass, gesturing frantically on a video call. The regional director's assistant, David, was pacing by the elevator banks. I settled at my desk and methodically organized my tasks for the day. Where have you been? Mark hissed, appearing beside me with wild eyes. Everything's falling apart. Isabella's been trying to reach you since yesterday afternoon. I left at 5 o'clock, I replied calmly. My work hours are 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, as specified in my contract. But the Miller crisis? What about it? His mouth opened and closed. They're threatening to walk. Nobody can figure out how to implement the changes they need. I nodded thoughtfully. That process requires special handling. It's all documented in the guide I created last year. Nobody can make sense of your documentation without you explaining it, he almost shouted. Before I could respond, Isabella's assistant appeared. Juanita. Emergency meeting in the conference room. Now. I gathered a notebook and pen and walked unhurriedly to the conference room where Isabella sat with a regional director, Robert. Their faces were grim, and folders were spread across the table. Juanita, Robert said, relief evident in his voice. Thank goodness. We need your help with this Miller situation immediately. I sat down and placed my notebook on the table. Of course. How can I assist? Isabella's face was tight with controlled fury. Let's cut to the chase. What will it take for you to fix this? The promotion? It's yours. I tilted my head slightly. That's a generous offer. But I've been contacted by a competitor. They've offered me a senior management position with a substantial salary increase. Apparently, they believe I'm qualified. The room went silent. Robert's eyes widened while Isabella's narrowed dangerously. You're leaving? When? I haven't accepted their offer yet, I replied. I was taking time to consider my options. Name your price, Robert said immediately. Whatever they're offering, we'll match it. I smiled politely. It's not just about compensation. It's about recognition, respect, and opportunity. The Miller client specifically asked for you by name. Isabella interjected. You can't possibly leave now. Interesting, I said. So did 4 others in the past month. I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. Here's my 2 weeks' notice. I'll help with the transition as my contract requires. Isabella reached for the folder, but Robert was faster. He opened it, scanned the contents, then closed it decisively. This won't be necessary, he said firmly. Juanita, I'd like to speak with you privately in my office. As I stood to follow him, Isabella remained seated, her knuckles white against the polished table. Robert's office was minimalist, but impressive. Awards and industry recognitions lined one wall, while floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. He gestured for me to sit in the chair across from his desk. I've been watching your contributions for some time, Robert said, folding his hands on his desk, though apparently not closely enough. I remained silent, letting him continue. The situation with Isabella concerns me, he admitted. This is the first I'm hearing about your promotion being denied. Why didn't you come to me directly? Chain of command, I replied simply. Isabella is my supervisor. Going over her head would have been inappropriate. He nodded slowly. Admirable, but perhaps misguided in this case. Tell me honestly, what would it take to keep you here? I considered my words carefully. Recognition of my actual contributions, appropriate compensation, and a position where I can implement the strategies I've developed instead of just executing someone else's vision. Robert studied me for a long moment. I'm creating a new position, Director of Operational Systems, reporting directly to me. Double your current salary, full remote flexibility 3 days a week, and authority over departmental workflow design. The position is yours if you want it. I didn't respond immediately, which seemed to surprise him. Is that not sufficient? He asked. It's very generous, I acknowledged. But I need to be clear about something. I'm not using a competing offer as leverage. There really is another company waiting for my decision. Robert leaned back. What can they offer that we can't match or exceed? A fresh start, I said honestly. No history of being overlooked. No colleagues who see me as support staff rather than leadership. Fair point, he conceded. But consider this. You've built systems here that you understand intimately. You've cultivated client relationships that trust you. Starting over means rebuilding all of that from scratch. He was right, of course. 5 years of institutional knowledge wasn't easily replaced. But neither was the feeling of being consistently undervalued. I'll need some time to consider, I said finally. Of course, take the weekend. But I need an answer by Monday morning. He stood, signaling the end of our meeting. And Juanita, I'd appreciate if you could help stabilize the Miller situation before you make any final decisions. I nodded. I'll handle Miller personally today. When I returned to my desk, an email from Robert was already waiting, outlining the new position offer in writing. The salary figure made me blink twice. It was more than double what I currently earned. The job description could have been written specifically for my skill set. I was gathering materials for the Miller call when Isabella appeared beside my desk, her expression carefully neutral. We need to talk, she said quietly. Not here. Lunch. I have the Miller call at noon, I replied. After that then, my office at 2. I nodded and turned my attention to the crisis at hand. The Miller team was frustrated, but relieved when I joined the call. Their demands were reasonable. They needed customizations that would normally take weeks implemented within days. I walked them through a phased approach that would prioritize their most critical needs while building toward their complete vision. "This is exactly why we wanted to work with your company," their director said. "You understand our business needs, not just technical specifications." After the call, I documented the solution in clear steps and sent it to the implementation team with explicit instructions. Normally, I would have handled every aspect myself, but today I delegated appropriately, making myself available for questions but not taking ownership of the execution. At 2 o'clock, I knocked on Isabella's door. She looked different, smaller somehow, with dark circles under her eyes, suggesting a sleepless night. "Close the door," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "I understand Robert offered you a new position." "He did," I confirmed. She nodded slowly. "I won't pretend to be happy about it, but I understand why he did it. You're valuable to the company." I waited, sensing there was more. "I owe you an apology," she continued, the words seemingly difficult for her. "I've relied on your competence without appropriately acknowledging it or rewarding it." "May I ask you something?" I said, genuinely curious. "When you said I wasn't qualified for senior management, what specifically did you think I was lacking?" Isabella shifted uncomfortably. "You've always been more technical, the behind-the-scenes problem solver. Senior management requires visibility, presence, political savvy. In other words, I do the work while others take the spotlight," I said. She had the grace to look embarrassed. "That's oversimplifying." "Is it?" I asked. "The Miller contract. Who presented the winning strategy to the executive team?" "I did, but..." "Based on the proposal I developed, the client retention initiative last quarter that saved 4 major accounts, who received the leadership award. That was a team effort, a team I led, coordinated, and created all materials for." I leaned forward slightly. "I'm not lacking qualifications, Isabella. I've simply allowed others to stand on my shoulders while remaining invisible." The silence between us stretched uncomfortably. "Are you taking Robert's offer?" she finally asked. "I haven't decided. If you stay," she said carefully, "things will be different between us." "Yes," I agreed. "They will." The weekend gave me time to think, clearly away from office politics. I took Sophia to the Science Museum on Saturday, something I'd been promising for months, but never found time for. On Sunday, I called my sister for advice. "What does your gut tell you?" she asked after I explained the situation. "That I've outgrown the box they put me in," I replied. "But I'm not sure if Robert's offer changes that or just makes the box more comfortable." "Would you be reporting to Isabella in this new role?"
"No."
"Directly to Robert." "And what happens to Isabella?" It was a good question. Robert didn't say specifically, but reading between the lines, I think her position is being reconsidered. My sister was quiet for a moment. "So your options are to take a fresh start elsewhere, or accept a promotion that might result in your former boss being demoted?" Put that way, the choice felt different. "I don't want revenge against Isabella," I said slowly. "I just want recognition for my work." "Are you sure about that?" my sister challenged. "Because from what you've told me, part of you would enjoy seeing her face the consequences of underestimating you." Her words hit uncomfortably close to home. Was that what I wanted? To see Isabella humbled? To watch her realize how much she'd depended on me while simultaneously dismissing my contributions? By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I arrived early, 7:30 a.m. My old starting time, and went directly to Robert's office. His assistant wasn't at her desk yet, but his door was open. "You're early," he noted, looking up from his computer. "I wanted to give you my answer before the day gets busy," I explained, taking the seat across from him. "And I'm accepting your offer with 2 conditions." His eyebrows rose slightly. "I'm listening." "First, I want to build my own team. Full hiring authority for 3 positions that I believe are essential." Robert nodded. "Reasonable." "And the second?" "Second, Isabella remains in her current position." This clearly surprised him. "After how she treated you." "Why?" "Because replacing her doesn't solve the structural problems in how the department functions. And because I don't want my first leadership act to be perceived as revenge." He studied me with new interest. "That's unexpected. and politically astute. I've learned a few things watching from the sidelines, I replied. Very well. Isabella stays, though her department will now coordinate through your office for operational matters. Thank you. No, Juanita, Robert said, extending his hand. Thank you for staying. The announcement will go out this morning. I suggest you prepare for quite a bit of reaction. He wasn't wrong. The company-wide email went out at 10 a.m.